Welcome to the fourth episode of the Disc Golf Doctor. Today we're going to talk about grip mainly. We're going to work on furthering the core strengthening that we started the last two episodes. We're going to turn it into sport-specific movements that really target how we use those muscles during the disc golf throw. We're going to talk about forehand and backhand grip, a couple of variations so that you can focus on that. The exercise we're going to do, we're going to combine it with a drill essentially. They're going to be one and the same, so we're not going to go over individual ones, just combined. As you can see, it snowed quite a bit outside this week, so that's why I filmed everything inside today. But that's even more of a reason we need to be working on strength to prepare for the season. Studies really show that you can't strengthen yourself by doing the task itself. We need to prepare ourselves and strengthen ahead of time and not just train during the season. That's part of the reason why I wanted to put this out now anyways. So we're talking about grips today. We're going to talk about both forehand and backhand. We'll start out with backhand since that's what most people use primarily, but I want to make sure we get a chance to do forehand as well. The main grip people use with a backhand is called a power grip. Mainly what you're doing is you're taking these three fingers, not your index finger, gripping here underneath firmly underneath the disc on the edge there. Okay, the index finger is also going to come in through here, but it's not really where you're getting most of your power. It's just there in contact. Part of it is if you really try to dig that hand in, you have to rotate your wrist. You have to supinate your wrist, and we want to keep that back so that we can get the disc in line with our forearm. So what you should do is get these fingers underneath here, get your index finger in contact, but gripping mainly with these three fingers. You're going to take your thumb and you're going to press down firmly, not hard, but firmly, just to keep control of that, just beyond the outside of the disc, kind of close to where your index finger would be. And there's two different ways to approach how to angle the disc. You can hold it, grab the disc first, place your thumb, and then if you don't adjust, your disc will be at a different angle here than my forearm is, than my arm is. We need to keep that all in line because otherwise I'm coming through here, my arm is angled this way, disc is going this way. We want to keep it consistent. What you should be doing is you should take that disc and you need to tip the arm like this, what we call ulnarly deviate the wrist, so that we get that all in line as we go to throw. The other alternative, Paul Uabari talks about this, is he'll say when he goes to put the disc in his hand, he'll line it up along the crease in his hand up towards his wrist so it's already in line, and then adjust his hand. I think that's more semantics because my hand's still in the same position ultimately in the end that it would be if I grab the disc first and then tip my arm here. Just depends on what you find is more comfortable. Some people end up having the disc go too much down towards this area of your palm, but you really do want it closer to that crease in your hand so that you can keep everything aligned, so that you don't really have to think about the disc. You really shouldn't be thinking about the disc. You should get comfortable with the grip. You should get used to having the arm in the same position, and you should be thinking more about your body mechanics, and the disc will do what you tell it to do with your body. So don't think about the disc. Get used to having it be in this position. I'm thinking more about my arm position and what I'm doing here or here, like we've talked about in previous episodes, to know where the disc should go. There's some other modifications people do with the disc. There's the modified power grip people use for a lot of type of upshots where essentially they're just loosening their grip. They're still holding on with maybe their pinky and ring finger, maybe a little bit looser with this middle finger and index finger so that you can guide it a little bit more as you're throwing as compared to really gripping hard and getting a lot of spin. To use for a little more control. Some people will use a fan grip where they have their fingers in various positions here, more fanned out where they're gripping the disc more with the pads of their fingers, and again more for feel. But there's a bunch of different ways you can do it like that. Those are used more for putting, for upshots, but a lot of players will really use this power grip except for putting in the upshots, like we just said. So the other thing we haven't talked about is forehand. There is some variety with forehand. The way I do it, and a lot of people do it, is they take these two fingers and they have them right up here against the lip of the disc. It's not one on top of the other typically. It's really the middle finger here that's in firm contact, and the ring finger next to that firmly. And as you throw, you're spinning it off of particularly that middle finger. The other adjustment sometimes people do is sometimes they'll still keep the middle finger, instead of having it sideways against the disc like I was just showing you, they'll have it a little bit more with the pad of the finger on there, and they'll take the index finger and they'll curl it up like this, so your fingers are essentially kind of like this, if you can see that. I have my index finger bent and the pad of the finger there, right? So some people throw it like that. They feel they can get better control. I think the only challenge of this is people, particularly if you're learning how to throw the forehand, we'll talk about this in the future, is the tendency is for people to let their wrist turn this way, and they do an accidental anhyzer or accidental roller. And the big advantage to forehand is keeping your palm up as you come through. So if you're using the sides of your fingers, it's easier to do that. It's definitely easier to throw a hyzer than if you have your palm facing in this way and still try to keep it up without letting the hand roll. So personally, I think it's easier to keep your fingers like that. Those are really kind of the two main ways people throw forehand, is here and here. There's some variety, but that's kind of the basics. As always, make sure you're cleared by your doctor for exercise. Make sure any movements or exercises you do are pain-free, not only during the movement, but afterwards as well. If you do have discomfort, modify the way you're doing it or don't do it at all. So in the same vein with what we've been doing the last couple episodes, we're focusing on core strength. The first time we worked on some simple non-functional exercises like doing the pelvic tilts on your back, pressing your back down. We did the little crunches just to get those abdominal muscles firing and working. Then we worked on last time doing a mix of functional and non-functional exercises. We did the planks. We talked about form and bringing the hips up a little bit, flattening out your back to really engage those abdominal muscles correctly, to train them on how they should really be working. We also did the bicep curl kind of exercise where we're talking about maintaining a nice neutral spine. We're coming up and down with the hands, making sure we're using our stomach muscles and not allowing our back to move. It's super critical to understand that basic concept for these two exercises we're going to do, because now we're going to induce rotation, particularly because that's how we use our abdominal muscles in disc golf, is we end up driving the disc using our stomach muscles to really drive that disc forward and rotate. Now, what's absolutely essential is that the hips need to turn with the lumbar spine. The lumbar spine does not rotate. You have about 2 to 4 degrees of total rotation from one side to the next with your lumbar spine. Anything after that, you're compressing those joints, and you see a lot of people end up with back issues as a result. So we want to train the stomach muscles to be stronger and to understand the movement of how we're supposed to drive through here using our hips and our back at the same time, so it's not just our lumbar spine rotating. So we can turn that into an exercise, and we talked about how we want to do some of these non-functional exercises and build up to sport-specific movements that mimic how we're going to use the muscles in the actual task. So if we take this sort of band that we used before, you want to make sure that you have enough tension. If it's not enough tension, just simply double it over. But for sake of our example right now, right, the disc golf stance we're going to be in, we talked about you want your feet in line with your target. So I'm going to stay right in line with this band here, because that's going to be my resistance. I'm going to turn like this, as if I'm doing my reach back with my hips partially turned, and I'm going to drive through like this, just like I'm doing the disc golf throw. I'm going to stop when my elbow gets to the end motion, just like this. What you can see here is I'm not rotating through my back. I'm not purely just turning my hips. I'm bringing them together. You can see they're working in unison as I'm pulling through. And this is great for training how you should be throwing. Right? It would really not make sense if people start doing this, just like a lot of people throw. You can feel how you don't have a lot of power doing this. So I do this, I have a lot of easy power, just like if I'm pulling cord to start a lawnmower. I'm driving through like this. I should actually be keeping even closer to my body than I was at first there, pulling back like this. And you should feel those stomach muscles have to engage and work there. We can double it over to get a little more tension. So I'm here driving through, really keeping my stomach muscles tight, and that's what I'm using to initiate that movement. In disc golf, you want forces to start from the bottom up. You want to be using your lower extremities, your hips, your turning, and then your core. You're engaging here. And only at that point here do I start really engaging these muscles here, my upper arm, and then my tricep muscle as I'm extending. So that's what we're trying to mimic here as I'm turning, doing this, using my stomach muscles, training them to protect my back and to get power when we throw. So I wanted to point out, if you're watching that last exercise/drill, that most exercises that are really good incorporate multiple muscle groups all at the same time. So I know you could be saying to yourself, well, yeah, isn't that working your arms as well? Certainly. Yeah, we're trying to focus on the core because that's really critical. And if you don't understand that component of things, you're really not quite getting it. But yes, you're going to be engaging some of those parascapular muscles, those muscles around the shoulder blade. You can be working your serratus anterior, probably your lats a little bit, your teres major, even stabilizing the shoulder with some of those rotator cuff muscles secondarily. Those are the kind of the main muscles you'll be engaging. But I really want you to focus on that core strength. You have to be engaging those abdominal muscles. So many people just don't keep those engaged. You lose a lot of power. You're not protecting your back. That's where you're going to end up with not as far as of a throw, and you're not going to be protecting your back, therefore, potentially causing some back issues. We see that all the time. So the more you can understand how to use those abdominal muscles, train those muscles, you're going to be utilizing them correctly when you go and actually throw the disc. So thank you for joining us here on the Disc Golf Doctor. I hope what we've gone over is helpful and that you're able to apply it to your game and train for this upcoming season, help prevent injuries going forward. Please provide any questions, concerns, thoughts, any ideas you want to go over in particular in the future. Take care.